The stakes have never been higher. The competition has never been stronger. 42 drivers, 25 rounds. One will be crowned champion. Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart. Tune in Wednesday nights on the iRacing Esports Network to watch the cars and stars of Lionheart, the Lionheart IndyCar Series presented by First Medical Equipment.
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
While those who want to see variety in a championship might groan at learning Modolf won his 9th straight race in a row, the silver lining for them is that Espinosa held tight to the rear bumper of Carl for most of the race. The high speeds that we saw at Sebring is a trend that will continue here at Watkins Glen. The walls are much closer and ready to bite very quickly should any driver make a mistake. Who will fall victim to the powder blue arm code today? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 2 of the PRL GTE Sportscar Series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Nick Schmeg. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Nick, the Glen is easily among the most popular tracks here on iRacing, and I think it's understandable. Why?
Oh, definitely. There's no doubt that Watkins Glen is one of the fan favorites in racing, and I think that goes for all genres of racing as well, whether it's IndyCar, Formula One, NASCAR, or like we have tonight, sports cars. The track here in the Finger Lakes of New York always makes for some incredible racing. The Glen is 3.4 miles long, or about 5.5 kilometers, and the history here goes way back too. This used to be a street circuit when it went down the hill and through the village in front of all of those fans cheering and screaming. That's when Watkins Glen first became associated with speed. Safety precautions and an influx of renovations saw a permanent racing venue built a number of years later. It's a really fast track, and the 12 turns here do not put any kind of hindrance on that speed either. They are all wicked fast, and you'll see some bold and daring maneuvers into them tonight for sure. A lot of drivers love Watkins Glen, and a lot of fans do too. If you're not already a fan of the product on track here at Thunder Road, I think we're going to make you one tonight. And it starts with getting a passenger seat ride around the Glen in the GSRC Lap Guide.
Alright, we've got Taylor Burris and the GSRC 4 GT, so let's do a lap around Watkins Glen. Down into the 90, this is a great place to pass, but with the downhill braking, you've really got to be careful not to overshoot it. While you've got a lot of paved runoff, if you kill your speed on the exit, you're going to pay for it by the time you hit the backstretch. Even though the S's are pretty much a single file affair, it's still easily flat out, so the drivers behind will be catching a huge draft on you all the way up the hill. Once you hit the backstretch, they're likely going to be closing in quickly, and if they've timed it right, you could be helpless. The real danger isn't just in losing a spot, it's the fact that the next time you brake, it's for the inner loop. This chicane is notorious for wreaking havoc when cars go side by side. It's best if you sort it out by the time you're navigating through here. That then throws you directly into the carousel. This long banked bend requires quite a bit of patience so that you don't understeer your way into the Armco. Then, before you know it, you've got to switch sides to set up for the chute. When it comes to corners you don't want to overcook, this one ranks pretty high up there. There's no place to save it on the outside except for just plowing into the tires. As we come to the lowest part of the course, you'll be braking for the toe of the boot. You might see some passes here if someone catches a good run on their opponent. But as you can see, the best way through is to give yourself a nice late apex and confidently apply the power. This steep uphill climb is going to punish anyone who hesitates by sucking up all of their speed. Because of that, this run to the heel of the boot often sees pass attempts. Now, they don't always go off, but you've got to have your head on a swivel depending on who's behind you. After that, you hit what I consider the toughest corner of the track, turn 9. It's got a crested turn-in, it's off camber, and the barriers on the exit are very, very close. No matter which way you lose it, it's likely you'll be catching damage. Then, into the penultimate turn, drivers will need a big lift and a fair amount of accuracy to carry speed through it. That takes us to the final corner, where it's almost like a street course. Understeer, and you'll be digging your car out of the tires. But hopefully, if you've kept it all together, you've now finished a lap around Watkins Glen. A lap around Watkins Glen. You could see the speed that these cars get around here that Nick was talking about. As always, today's race is brought to you by SIMSA. The Simulation Motorsports Association is a sim racing platform created by experienced racers. Established in 2015 and supported by the International Sim Racing Federation, the association is bringing together organizations and communities to further promote sim racing globally. Concentrating on all sims worldwide, they offer a focused opportunity for sim racers to compete with each other. They also provide consultancy services to this growing esports world. SIMSA offers solution for racing simulator requirements and custom-built simulator parts, as well as complete customization and upgrading of existing simulators. You can find them at simsa.net. Today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by Fraser & Dieter. Fraser & Dieter is a nationally recognized PCAOB registered CPA and advisory firm headquartered in Atlanta with thousands of clients globally. It provides a wide range of services, including tax, audit, advisory, internal controls, and transaction support to achieve each client's unique financial goals. With offices in Alpharetta, Atlanta, Las Vegas, Nashville, and Tampa, Fraser & Dieter has consistently been named a best of the best CPA firm by Inside Public Accounting and is ranked among the top 60 largest CPA firms in the United States. You can find them at FraserDieter.com. We've now got one round in the championship. Nick, we've got some points on the board, so what do they look like?
Absolutely. It's only after one round, like you mentioned, so it's not the runaway we saw quite yet for Karl Modov, and I'll be Curious to see, along with everyone else, if that runaway does grow. But right now, it is a 5-point gap. Extremely manageable for everyone in the field, especially Andres Espinoza there in second. We saw him lead, actually, a little bit last week at Sebring in the opener. Jorge Flores, a fellow Porsche driver as well, up in that top 5 there. Top 3, actually, you see there, as along with Christian Eisler and Sean Macbeth, rounding out the top 5. We also do have a team's championship up for grabs, though, and Karl Modoff, as you saw, had the runaway in the Drivers' Championship. He is a part of the team that is in second, actually, with CRT there. Speedworks Racing Team West is on top of that with Tremblay and Flores, but it is only a 2-point gap back to Modoff and Clark. Speedworks Racing Team East, the sister team of the leaders, of course, they're in third, tied with the North team, of course, from SRT as well. And SDS Racing Green, a couple of Argentinians in the field, are sitting there in fifth.
So thankfully, with it still being tight early on, as you mentioned, it's possible for anybody to try and dethrone the likes of Karl Modoff. But the question is, can anybody actually do that? Let's take a look at what this race holds in store for drivers to have to take that win today. Round 2 out of 10. We've got 4 cars out there: the Porsche 911, Ferrari 488, Ford GT, and the BMW M8. Now, they can choose to change cars because iRacing has recently made a BOP adjustment. They have until round 3 to do that. We'll see if anybody decides to swap around in the next couple rounds. The race distance at 45 minutes, it means that they will have 1 pit stop, at least scheduled for fuel. Hopefully they don't have to stop for more times than that. Cars have an open setup, so they can tweak them exactly to how they like. And we've got an incident cap out here today. Always remember that. They've got 24 of those. They will be disqualified. And if they do accrue any sort of damage in those incidents, well, they've got no spare car waiting for them in the pit lane. So if you break it, you bought it. It's going to be a fascinating one out there with these close walls. If you've been enjoying the Precision Racing League, we've got both this and the Radical Series on the iRacing Esports Network. Make sure and click the subscribe button on their YouTube page. You'll get all of the PRL races that I just mentioned in your YouTube feed, along with the official World Championship Series. That includes both road and oval, dirt, and rallycross that you can catch here on IESN. We're watching qualifying right now, and Karl Modoff just continues this domination. Nick, he's got himself up on the pole, and it looks like he's got a handy nearly 4/10 second of a gap.
Yeah, right now that's a good gap he has over Ben Perez, but we saw at Sebring last week a lot of qualifying times come in late during the session. People really saving up for that last 1 or 2 minute sprint here at the end of the 15-minute qualifying session. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw someone like Espinoza sitting in third right now, or Montini, Federico Montini, that is sitting in fourth, bump their way up there slowly through the field.
Now, here's a name that I'm glad to see getting ready to challenge Modoff. Ben Perez, back again. He was here last week, but he unfortunately accrued a penalty, I believe. Got into a bit of a tangle. He's sitting on the second row, so this is not going to be a hot lap for him. He's the one currently chasing Modoff on the timing screens instead of Espinoza.
Indeed, he got off to a rough start last week at Sebring. He sits all the way down in 24th in the points right now. I would highly expect that to pick up, though, as long as he can put together some solid finishes. Like you said, sitting second right now and looking good.
This is Mike Richter, yet to put a time in. He's got a hustle here. The number 51 car has done 2 laps out there. Both of them have been discounted, which happens when you have an off track. You've got to stay within the track limits on these qualifying laps, or else they are erased from the timing board. So without that time in, the 36 cars that do have a time in will all start in front of him. So if he's got some pace, this might not be a fun day considering the large field we've got out here.
Yeah, and Watkins Glen is not a track that we see. It's not a track that comes to mind when you think of racetracks here on iRacing where you can go off track a little bit. There's a couple sections, of course, where you can pick up a 1X here or there, but a lot of times you have to treat this like a street circuit because those Armco barriers, like you mentioned in the intro, are so close to the track.
Christian Eisler returns once again. That last lap also did not count for the 727. He'll stay in P6. And you talk about some of the close walls and whatnot. My worry, especially whenever we get a big field like this, is the first couple laps going up through the S's. It's essentially like a street course. I always kind of worry about the potential for a pileup and a track blockage.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw the Precision Racing League Radical Series here last Thursday night, and it was a very clean race right at the start, but just a couple of major incidents with just one, or a couple of minor incidents, really, that really set off a couple of major incidents further back. There is a bit of a checkup here compared to other tracks. It's such a racing line dependent venue, and a lot of times we do see attrition play a major factor, so definitely something to keep your eye on tonight. Hopefully don't see any big names get taken out.
I agree. Macbeth going to abandon that lap. He's still sitting in 5th. I'm not sure if he's got enough time to come around to start a lap. He's got to really hustle out if he does. And I think, yeah, he's decided to leave the car, so he's done for today. Modoff is still out there as we ride on board with Peterson, continuing to try to improve. We haven't seen a change between the top two. Perez still 0.385 behind our pole sitter. And Peterson on that last lap, unfortunately, did not improve. In fact, it did not count for him. All right, Ben Perez up to the line. He's had a few off tracks these last few laps, and it's another one. This is going to be his last try. We are under that minute 40 that most drivers are running. He's really got to make this one clean if he hopes to get on top. On board with Modoff, watching him come out of the boot section onto the main course. The tricky left-hander of turn 9. Looks nice and smooth in this Porsche. Could yet still improve on his lap time and extend that gap to everyone. Off of the final corner. See what the number 48 has underneath him. He's got a 40.6 as his fastest lap. That was a slow one for him. Must have been a warm-up lap. This will be his last try now. Now in the past... Oh, go ahead.
It's going to be the last try for a lot of these guys coming through. So still a lot of real estate up for grabs here. Right now we have 36 drivers, like you mentioned just a moment ago, on the board, but 4 drivers yet to make a lap as well.
Now, in the past, a couple races here for this series, we've seen something of a fuel race. We're watching Kenny Rodriguez come across from 20th. I'm curious to see if that will return, because Modoff sort of just has gone flat out since he started his domination. Maybe someone could get cute today?
It is definitely a thirsty track. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that situation play out at all. But then again, last week, you take a look at Sebring, Modoff really dominated the pit cycle there and the pit strategy, so I wouldn't be surprised if, even though we saw that, we saw Modoff pull away with a great performance.
Perez's last lap was 0.2 quicker than his best, but that is not enough to overtake Modoff. So we just saw Eisler come across the line, but he'll stay in 6th. Now we go to Clark down in 12th. His fastest, a 1:41.8 around the final corner. He's staying with it, not giving up the lap. Let's see what this will do. It does not count. Federico Montini, the next one coming up in the number 5 car, sitting in 5th place, but he slows before the line. Not happy with that lap. Modoff abandons his final one. Gilmet also not going to concern himself with getting a faster lap. Maxi Sorella does stick it out and hits a 42.7. That's only good enough for 29th. Tyler DeZube stays in 8th, even though he improves to a 41.2. And that is going to be it for our field. Qualifying is over here for round 2 at Watkins Glen and the PRL GTE Sports Car Series. So let's go through your starting order. Carl Modoff going to be on the pole with Ben Perez starting P2. Jorge Flores comes back to try to challenge once again. He'll be third. He's finished third last race at Sebring. Andre Espinosa, second place last race, starts from the second row but in 4th. Federico Montini, he had a good race here last year. He'll be P5 when the green drops. Sean Macbeth will be 6th, and then next to him will be Christian Eisler in 7th. Tyler DeZube starts 8th. Row 5 will have Dan Ravito in the inside in 9th, and Fernando Borda starts 10th.
Behind them in row number 6, it'll be Leif Peterson. Looks like the driver out of Texas, starting in 11th, with Justin Ream behind him. The Baker's dozen spot goes to Corey Clark, teammate of Carl Modoff, who has the pole. I bet there's a lot of speed in that 24 car. He's going to start on the inside of Jean-Marc Tremblay and right ahead of Mike Cray in 15th. He is going to be alongside Pablo Uribe in the 25, one of the few Fords running out here today, along with Pete Moberton in the 28 car, Brett Thurman behind them in 18th, JT Costin in 19th, and Jerome Bertum going to be in P20.
Kenny Rodriguez 21st, followed by Hugo Galaz in 22nd. Then you've got Josh Daniels starting 23rd on the field. Cristobal Valenzuela will be P24. Takeshi Kita, actually pretty good qualifying for Takeshi, up to 25th. Then you've got Stephen Bench in 26. Rodrigo Munoz will be P27 and James LeBlanc in 28th. Tyler Gilmet will be 29th. Maxi Sorella, who we watched try to improve, was only able to get up to 30th.
31st goes to Lucio Vargas. Manuel Paredes is going to be alongside him in the number 42 machine. Carson Quint and Joey Trungale, we saw them involved in accidents last week at Sebring. Hopefully the pair of drivers there in row 17 will have it sorted out this week. David Slee and Danny Duchesne, a little bit of a poor qualifying, it looks like, for Danny Duchesne, starting back in 36 with Mike Richter and Gary Schilling behind them. They're going to be the last 2 cars to set qualifying times, with Horatio Brown and David Hebert going to be with no qualifying time, rounding out row number 20.
Waiting for them to get started on the pace lap, and we can go racing for 45 minutes here in the PRL GTE Sports Car Series. Once again, want to give a big thank you to our sponsors for this season, Simulation Motorsports Association. Again, you can find them at simsa.net if you want to check them out. And also to Fraser and Dieter if you need any accounting help. FraserDieter.com is the website you can check out for them. Looks like just about everybody out there waiting on our pole sitter to join the grid, and now he pops on. As we mentioned, very, very large fields. This rolling start should hopefully help, but also a little concerned about that first corner, the 90. You've got that runoff, but we've seen some bad tangles in the first corner on the first lap in just about any series at this track.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone has a little bit of a different braking point going in there. Some people like to really swing that turn wide and get up on the flat part there, the runoff that you can see them go by now up front. That is illegal. You can use that runoff, but you got to come back before you hit the grass. That's where the track limits are. And you got to be really careful when you come back on the track too, because there's often at least a cars to your inside there.
Last season, at the start of the race, we saw fast driver Corey Ott get set back at the very beginning. And unfortunately, the driver to the inside of him pushed him wide and into the Armco. Ott not here today, but that could happen to any of the other drivers if they're not careful. So everybody's got to keep their head up. They hit the top of the hill, onto the back stretch, and then another danger zone that we see on this course, the inner loop at the end of this back stretch. We had, you mentioned we were here with the Radicals, and that caused a lot of trouble between drivers.
Yeah, it definitely did, and that's a turn that does not get along with cars that are very close to the ground often, so we might not see as much attrition come out of the bus stop here with the GT cars tonight, but nonetheless, definitely still a danger zone as you're trying to power through there and get down into the carousel here, which is a really tough corner here in the GTE cars as well.
Now through the carousel and onto the boot section of the track. If you're familiar with watching this circuit with NASCAR, this is the extra bit that most of the road series tend to run. Extends it by roughly a mile and adds a few corners, not too many. The chute very fast downhill, and then it continues to plunge here into the toe of the boot. Might see some passes. You can see the Porsche pace car going to lead them along. The makes of the cars today relatively decently mixed up at the top. We've got some Porsches. Well, actually, I say that. I look at the number of Porsches up in the first 3 rows, and I think that's a little bit overwhelming. So maybe not as mixed up at the very, very front, but behind that, we've got cars decently dispersed.
And that's interesting, too, because we had some drivers in post-race interviews last week at Sebring a little worried that maybe the BMWs would be a little overpowered and run away with this thing. I definitely don't think that's the case. We even have a Ferrari there on the front row with Ben Perez.
All right, back onto the main course once again. Looking forward to round 2 and see what our drivers have in store. What does Espinosa have? What does Flores have? What about Ben Perez? Perez used to be in Karl Modoff's shoes. Seemed almost unbeatable at times. Has he been replaced? Today is going to be a good sign as to whether or not that is the case. Pace car peels in. Modoff has control. He accelerates away. And Perez does not get a good launch. He's already got a car to the inside. That is Jorge Flores looking to take second place away as they come down to the 90. He's going to have to get the launch off the corner. That can be tough off the inside. And he doesn't quite have it. Looking back in the background, it looks relatively clean.
It is clean, just really clustered. Everyone side by side going through the field. Even that row 3 behind them, Espinosa and Macbeth, they're side by side as well as they go on the backstretch.
We did have one incident. It looks like Rodrigo Munoz involved in that, as well as trying to spot the other car. That looks like Maxi Sorella. Otherwise, only 3 cars making contact in the first lap. Everybody else seems to be clean as they work their way through the inner loop and through the carousel onto the boot. Already, Karl Modoff extending his gap to nearly a second. Back to Ben Perez.
Ben Perez did win that battle over Jorge Flores, though. He had a lot of Jorge Flores to deal with there on the first lap after he didn't quite get the start he wanted to. So good to see Ben Perez be able to fend him off now, and now he's got a sight set on Modoff ahead of him. But like you said, he's got a little bit of a gap to go to him.
Cars still very close together. You can see a peak to the inside. That's Justin Rame, who decides to back out of it for 11th position. Dan Revito ahead of him. Now back onto the main circuit. Already Modoff heading through the penultimate corner and continuing to pull a gap. I said 1 second a bit ago, it is up to 1.2 now over Perez. If it is going to be a fuel-saving race and a draft race, well, Perez is not in a good position to make that happen. Behind them, we got a pass between Sean Macbeth on the inside of Espinosa, slots himself into 4th.
And Macbeth and Espinosa, they are sister teammates. Espinosa coming out of SRT Esports East, Macbeth coming out of the North team for that. You're going to see a lot of those paint schemes, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw them work together a little bit, at least in the first portions of the race.
Looks like Espinosa going to back out of it, but not the case behind them. Christian Eisler fending off Federico Montini, who is ahead of Tyler DeZube. They all string back single file, but at the last moment here into the inner loop, it is a huge train of cars all the way down to P15 in this group.
Yeah, really close nose to tail through there. One tiny slip-up is going to cause big problems behind them, so hopefully they all get it settled through. Looks like side-by-side further back. It looks like Leif Peterson and Corey Clark for a moment were side-by-side.
Yeah, this is for 13th. That was through the carousel. Peterson came out ahead of Clark in that 13th spot. Right on board as he gives chase. You can see up ahead that car to the inside. That is Dan Revito on Fernando Borda. He's trying to outbrake him. But back there, though, who was that? That was Corey Clark getting by Peterson as well. Action happening everywhere you look in the mid-pack.
Like you said, Revito holding off Justin Rame behind him. He actually held him off on the outside of that tricky turn 9 there. They come through turns 10 and 11 now, snaking their way through onto the front stretch. And they are still single file, very nose to tail, though.
Revito's got a good run on Fernando Borda. He gets a nose inside down to the 90. He's going to have to be deep on the brakes and then strong on the power coming out of there. Borda is not going to let him get the opportunity. It's a drag race up the hill through the S's. Behind them, Justin Rame in the popcorn position.
Yeah, Rame got a lot of tow there, a lot of slipstream as well. That's going to be Jean-Marc Tremblay going to the left there. It is two deep 2x2 here, and behind them, Corey Clark is going to come join the action as well.
Ravito's got the inside of the first part. Eventually he gets it. Rame off course completely. He's going to get a slowdown penalty from that for sure. To the outside, Jean-Marc Tremblay takes advantage. He pops himself up to P11.
Tremblay gets by. It looks like Justin Rame slowing down. The car's on the inside of him now. Corey Clark is there. Leif Peterson underneath him now.
Peterson isn't able to sneak through as Rame finally gives the time back. That checkup, though, causes Pablo Uribe and O'Brien to go side by side as they come out of the toe of the boot. This is for P15.
Pablo Valenzuela Uribe there making that work with the Ford underneath O'Brien.
Been almost a chain reaction. We've been following this battle as it started all the way up with Eisler as cars get side by side. They get slowed up, and we're now looking at 16th all the way down here, where that effect, that butterfly effect, has caused so many opportunities, but only a few have been able to take advantage. That is a lot of cars. Nobody is able to get away from one another.
Yeah, especially in the mid-pack. It's spreading out, like you said, a little bit ahead of him, but anywhere you look back here from roughly 8th or 9th on back, it is just a cluster.
Like you said, if anybody has any sort of error, it's going to cause all sorts of problems as we jump back to our leader, who really doesn't have that pressure that Ben Perez fans would have hoped for. Perez staying about 1.5 seconds back, but really not threatening. If anything, he's a lot closer to Jorge Flores, who's back there in third, exactly where he finished at Sebring. Bit surprised to see Espinoza, not a bigger threat today. He's fallen down to 5th, having started this race P4.
Yeah, that car was very fast at Sebring. It was great performance. He actually got around Modov for a little bit of that race after Karl Modov made a bit of a mistake, and he was able to hold him off for a little bit. After that, pit cycles happened, and Espinoza had to settle for second. But nonetheless, he got off to a great start from the season, and I'm sure he'd love a top 5 like he's got now, but even more so a podium.
If we could jump to Jean-Marc Tremblay, this is back in 11th. They're at the head of this train. Borda is seeing a lot of that green, white, and black in his mirrors as Tremblay weaves back and forth looking for an opportunity. This is another one, pokes his nose in, but he comes back to the racing line, not confident about it here, maybe trying to set him up out of the 90, looking to get the power down in that Porsche, and it's going to keep him with him. Is the slipstream going to be enough to offer a pass? Let's find out.
Tremblay is there. He goes to the outside into the grass just a little bit. Back to the inside, though.
Big lift from Tremblay. Had to get out of it. Thought he was going to get squeezed off the track. Borda almost looked like he was surprised he was going to be at the left and pulled off to the right when they both made that same move. And we've got an incident in the back. This is Kenneth Rodriguez, slipping all the way down to the very, very tail. Let's see what happened in the replay. Mike Cray is the other car involved.
Yeah.
Just has his nose in, you can see there, and they come together.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Side by side, we mentioned the dangers of the inner loop here right on the pace lap, and that's exactly what will happen. That track gets so narrow into there in the racing line. You need to be on that so much to stay fast through there. Those drivers just weren't willing to give an inch.
Everybody was so close together. That was that was a long time for him to get back on track. And Jerome Bertone was the first car that came upon that. He made a beautiful job just sneaking through the middle of those spinning cars. Rodriguez all the way down to 37th. Looking at Ben Perez once more. Jorge Flores certainly keeping his eye on the number 74, the former champion in this series. He's closed in slightly, not huge amounts, but he's chipping away.
He definitely has, and he's got Perez in his sights. He's trying to reel him in here. This track's so fast, you have to be so precise in a lot of these turns here at the Glen.
With speed comes that need for precision. Right on the bumper of Ben Perez, looking back at Flores. You can see we've had some cloud cover periodically. It's not too bad of conditions, hovering around 90 degrees Fahrenheit, up and down above that here and there because of the changeable sunlight that we've had. Looking back at 11th, we've been watching this battle a little bit. Fernando Borda. Oh, but it's with Corey Clark now because Jean-Marc Tremblay has fully gotten by. Defensive move by Borda down to the inside of the heel. Can Corey Clark get this done the long way around? He's going to try. That's just not quite enough.
No.
Oh, no, but he turns him. And that is, Pete Mobrotten, who unfortunately also got into him trying to avoid the spinning car.
Looks like Pablo Uribe also involved in that as well. He came through and hit him as well.
Yeah, Mobrotten, unfortunately, just completely blinded by the car ahead, and suddenly there is Borda's car back across the track.
Clark and Borda were so close coming out of the heel and looking up the hill into turn 9 to get back on the Cup circuit here, and I think Clark just shifted off his line a little bit, and I don't think Borda expected him to be there. It's so hard to place the blame on anyone there. It's just such close racing.
And I feel for Pete being sort of the innocent victim in that one. That brings us up to 7th place because Federico Montini and Tyler DeZube have themselves a nice little tussle going on. We're closing in on that pit window. Now, we probably won't see anything, obviously, early on here, Nick, with the fuel strategy stuff, but I do wonder with these big trains if anybody has been sneaky while we've been watching these battles.
Well, definitely. I think people definitely have been. You don't need to put the power down nearly as much on a lot of these straightaways. If you're stuck right in the middle of one of those trains, you can save a little bit. And also, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw anyone want to bail out of those trains. Lots of traffic jams throughout the field. You might want to pit early just to avoid getting caught up in an accident.
On board with the Carolina driver, still giving chase to Montini. Federico with a couple podiums last season. Didn't get one in the first round. Comes across the line. He's still doing what he can to try and get himself in a position to claim another, but he's got a relatively decent gap up to 3rd place Flores. Ooh, big battle going on down here for 17th. Borda, who just lost 16th not long ago, has now got Stephen Bench going by. That car is not healthy. Look at this. It's like he's standing still.
That's exactly what it looks like. Cristobal Valenzuela also getting by. You saw Tyler Gilmet also get a big run on him. He's right behind him, the fellow BMW driver. He's going to go side by side behind them. Takeshi Kita also wants a piece of it.
Yeah, and I think Takeshi's got plenty of speed and going to easily get himself up into 20th now. Oh, this has got to be frustrating for Borda. I think maybe Borda's waiting for the pit stop to get this damage repaired.
I definitely think he might be in just a couple more laps if Borda can hang on.
Now, a driver that's had a good race is Stephen Bench. Started 26, and he did have a qualifying time, so in case Bill is watching, this is legitimate. He's up to 17th, number 84, a position gain of 9. And we're only a third of the way through the race.
He's having a great race, and he's not done yet moving up. It looks like he's trying to make or had to hold off Cristobal Valenzuela there, actually.
Yeah, that was a defensive move into the heel of the boot. Valenzuela was not successful. Stays back P18. behind them, actually, very close between Gilmet and Takeshi Kita. Kita may have just recently got past Borda, but he wants one more. Let's watch them come through the penultimate turn, then through the final corner on the front stretch. He gets himself a very good run, actually. He's closing in on the back of Gilmet. The 555 car doesn't go defensive, and Keisha also doesn't go on the attack.
Keeping it clean and conservative right now back here for P19. A little bit of a 3-car tussle behind them with Hugo Galaz and
Dzube up in 8th. Dzube has a problem. He was finally getting past Federico Montini. They were side by side into the inner loop, and Montini decided to back out of it just as Dzube lost his car. What a great call by Federico.
That was a fantastic last-second maneuver by Montini, like you said. And again, this is the exact same issue, the exact same place we saw before. Might be a little bit of netcode between the two drivers.
We did a good job keeping it out of the tires. But Dzube, just from that one mistake, falls well down the order.
Oh, Dzube had another issue, actually, down into the boot with Josh Daniels, it looked like. Actually, I don't think Daniels was a part of that. I think Dzube lost it all by himself.
Yeah, that was... Oh, he was to the inside. Maybe he put him off. Could have been some marbles and some dirt on the outside of the racing line, and Dzube just lost it. We don't need the replay, but he backed it into the tires this time, so he definitely has a little bit of damage at the very least.
And if you were wondering about the lead, you saw that graphic at the top of the screen just a moment ago. We don't have to go there, but Modov with the fastest lap in this race again.
Pulling away from Ben Perez. It is now 2.5 seconds. If anything, the battle for second that we're watching right now is getting more and more intense. Flores, who was 0.6 behind P2, is now 0.3 of a second behind.
I think that's definitely one of the reasons Modov is getting faster and faster. Is he's got nothing to worry about because behind him he's got quite a battle here, like you said, with Perez and Flores that we're watching now.
It's been a great drive, a great season, you could say, by Jorge Flores, especially if he keeps this spot. 2 podiums in a row is going to be a very nice start. Not as good as Modov if he gets 2 wins in a row. Ooh, and looks like Dzube's lost another spot. Oh, no, actually, I think he was trying to pass Kita.
This was in the carousel. This was very interesting.
You can see it started in the inner loop, though, and then it finished in the carousel. Wow, Kita is being gutsy today. He was not willing to give that one up. We must have had an issue with Gary Schilling because he suddenly jumped around on the timing screen. Oh, this is a monster crash. If we could get a replay of this. He's currently shown in 12th and falling down quickly. It was also with the car of Joey Trungale. Trungale also losing positions. I think we've got the replay. Schilling went for a wild ride. We'll have to back up. It was into the inner loop. Here we go. Now we're going to see it.
Wow. Yeah.
Almost over the catch fence even. Landed on his lid, so actually had to take that tow. Even if his car could have driven. Wheels without being on the ground is not going to make it move forward. So let's go back to 3rd place. Oh, Ben Perez has responded. Look at this.
He definitely has. That gap opened up again just a little bit. Flores was right on his tail, and Perez is not going to let him get much closer. Behind Flores, though, Sean Macbeth has joined the fun up here as well. He's in P4, looking to get around his teammate of Flores.
And don't forget, Sean Macbeth actually made a pass early in the race to get by Espinoza. He's since dropped Espinoza like a bad habit, 3.2 seconds behind him. Credit to Macbeth on this one.
Absolutely. He's had a great run, sitting 5th in points as well after Sebring. So if he can hold on to this at least 4th place finish, he's going to have a great scenario early in the season.
Yeah, whatever's bewitched Macbeth, he needs to continue to drink this potion because this is a fantastic race. These 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place cars all in a train of 3 and have not been able to separate from one another for quite a while. Let's go back to the battle for 8th, Revito and Tremblay. That's Tremblay to the inside. Revito does not defend. In fact, he breaks early. He's going to let Jean-Marc move through. More of those sister Speedworks cars.
Behind them, a good battle as well between Clark and Rame.
Both these drivers we've watched in battles all over the place, it seems, except not with each other until now. Justin Rame about 0.4 of a second behind Corey Clark. That is Leif Peterson that you see in the background with them. We watched Leif race last night in the Autobahn Sports Car Challenge at Daytona, but not in a GTE car. He was in the HPD for the prototype class and certainly didn't look like he had the speed in that higher downforce car. He's found it once again here today, looking at a potential top 10.
He's looking into the top 10, just not quite there yet. He's in 12th. He started 11th too, so he's going the wrong way, but he's not losing too much at all.
Yeah, still a bit of race to go for him to try and make up for that. And I don't know about you, but Rame's been blinking quite a bit on my screen. In fact, I'll have to keep an eye to see if he's going to get a disconnect here because, oh, he's back once again. Ooh, that was a long time gone. This is behind them, Brett Thurman. P13, pretty much in no man's land. One of the few cars that's managed to find track to himself out here. And once Ben Perez found himself some speed, Flores finds a little bit too. It's back down to 0.4 of a second.
Yeah, we were just mentioning how Thurman was able to find a little bit of track for himself back with Leif Peterson. These drivers have not been able to find a little bit of track for themselves because they've been pretty close together for the for most of the duration of this race, with once again Sean Macbeth riding there behind them in 4th. He hasn't closed that gap in much, but Flores has significantly closed in on Perez.
We've had a few of the drivers in the mid-pack come in for their scheduled stops. Dezube, Duchesne, and Munoz have all been in and out already. Everybody else has been an unscheduled stop. Joey Trungale, one of them, who's multiple laps down. Gary Schilling is actually still either getting repairs or a tow. Take your pick. So we stay on this battle for P2. Perez once again is finding something in that car to extend the gap to about 0.6 of a second. Now Macbeth. Maybe it's not Perez. Maybe it's Flores who's having the ebb and flow.
Looks like Perez is just a lot better than Flores in the boot section of the track, and then everywhere else might have something to do with one of the wing, maybe the wing setting or something in that setup that's just making Flores a lot faster on this portion of the track. But now he's got Macbeth in his mirror.
And that is a lapped car. That's Jerome Bertome letting them through. Macbeth gets awful close, but he runs out of track before the inner loop. Oh, a little hot into there for Flores. Almost goes off the track in the last apex. Brings it back together, collects himself. Look at how much of an advantage this has given Sean Macbeth now. Less than a car length back when they were braking for the chute, but he loses a little bit there. Obviously pushing, wanting to try and get himself onto the podium.
Flores struggling just a little bit in that uphill section in the toe.
I think Macbeth's biggest fan right now is Ben Perez. He'd love to see them start to fight because he's already getting himself a gap with the mistakes we're seeing from Flores. The Hispano-American driver needing to clean things up. Maybe you talked about getting a little tricky with pit strategy. Maybe this is the time for Flores to come in. Oh, Justin Rame in the in the chute. Did he hit the wall? He was giving chase on Clark still. Oh, he took a look. Oh, maybe that was too ambitious on his part.
Yeah, just got a little hot in there. Like you mentioned, he was looking underneath Corey Clark and just kind of lost it down there at the bottom of the track. He didn't hit anything initially. He slid, but then rapidly trying to get off the track to stay out of everyone's business, he ended up hitting that Armco, and I'm not sure how much damage that gave the front end of that Porsche. I don't think too much.
That was a hard thunk. Meanwhile, it wasn't Flores that came in to try to get himself out of the battle. It was Sean Macbeth.
Oh.
He is now our highest pitter.
And that really kind of surprises me, because you'd think out of everyone in that group, Macbeth would be saving the most fuel, but maybe he's just trying to do a little bit of short pit strategy and pull some tricks out of his sleeve. That has allowed Flores to really close back in on Perez, though.
Well, maybe that's exactly why he pitted early. He figured that if he comes in at an opposing time to these two, that gives him he could get the jump on them. But we'll see. He's back out in P12. None of our other leaders have come in. Other than Macbeth, the only other highest pitter is Hugo Glass, down in 23rd. So really, Macbeth pulling an alternate strategy to all the other cars around him. Let's see if Perez and Flores respond. Got quite a bit of cloud cover right now. This is going to cool the track down, which is great for Macbeth. Give him a chance for some hot laps. Perez and Flores both stay out.
It'll be interesting to see if they come in at the same time or if Flores jumps him.
Yeah, and about 6 more minutes before we start to get to the end of the pit window. So they've got a couple laps. Let's take a look at that mid-pack yet again. James LeBlanc in 19th with Mike Cray, two drivers who haven't got a lot of love, but this is a great move there from James LeBlanc, using the outside line to carry the speed into the corner and keep Cray behind.
And that next car ahead of him is actually Ken Rodriguez, who actually got by both of them earlier in the lap, looks like.
LeBlanc, who I was also impressed with in his qualifying, finds himself... Oh, and who's that off track? That's David Slee. That's for position, those cars going by. The final corner was a little bit too difficult for David Slee, the number 38, with a big slide.
I wonder if he was trying to get a slowed down for pit entry, and braking while the turning there didn't agree with him.
Well, and very similar to what we saw with Rame, he tries to get it going and slams the nose into the blue walls. And he doesn't take it into the pits, fascinatingly.
I'd like to stay out, so maybe that wasn't it. Maybe he just coincidentally lost it right in front of the pit entry.
Seems to be the case. Slee returns in P20. We do have a leader in this race. I know we haven't shown him a whole lot, but Karl Modoff looking at race number 10 in a row if he keeps this up.
That gap just keeps getting bigger and bigger, too, because Perez and Flores are still fighting for the position behind him.
This is... we almost have to be a little bit in awe in what we've been witnessing this last season and this season's start with Karl Modoff. It's a Vettel-esque performance with the way that he can just keep winning and winning and winning. Is there anybody that can stop the number 48 Porsche? Looking at 7th place, Tremblay, Ravito. We're watching them have some back and forth battles earlier on in this portion of the track. But Ravito looking a little slow through the carousel. That gap gets slightly bigger. It's up to 0.6 of a second now to the 927 car. Oh, and what's going on with Kitty here? Oh,
there's a traffic jam back here.
This is for 13th spot. That's Stephen Bench in front of Takeshi. And Takeshi is just climbing over the back of that spoiler. He ducks it in deep on the brakes. Bench gonna deny him. Kita gets another run at it. Holding the middle of the track, Stephen Bench, forcing him to go the awkward long way around. Kita says, thank you, I can do that easily enough. And look at that!
Wow.
That is the move of the race for me. Can we get an onboard replay of Takeshi Kita? I'm not sure that I've seen anybody complete a pass around the outside, especially when they didn't have a nose ahead under braking. Look at this.
Just powered around him.
I don't care if you go defensive. I'm taking the spot. Look at that.
There's no way Stephen Bench ever had a clue that that was going to come up out of his mirror on the left side.
Kita continues on with that 13th spot gladly. We've had a couple other stoppers. Andre Espinoza in 11th has himself in and out, but he is still behind Sean McBeth. He was not able to close that gap with the pit stop. Corey Clark has just completed his pit stop. Clark returns P15. Starting to see the dominoes fall in terms of strategy. Ben Perez, who is still about 4 seconds behind Modoff, is dealing with Jorge Flores, applying immense pressure, but dealing with it well, you have to say. We haven't really seen major mistakes from the 74.
Oh, and it looks like the 74 of Perez is coming into pit right now as well. That is going to leave Flores on track to give him second place for the time being.
All right, here's a big question. The 252 of Sean McBeth. He pitted many laps ago at this point. 3 of them to be exact. Actually, almost 4. He's coming around the penultimate corner. Ben Perez still hasn't even hit his stall. He only needed about 10 seconds stationary. Perez now getting his fuel. McBeth on the front stretch. Perez is out. Where's McBeth? McBeth, I think he's going to get by. It's going to be tight. Wow. Sean McBeth able to jump Ben Perez. And remember, Perez was ahead of Flores. This could mean that McBeth is all the way up to P2 now.
It definitely could. I'm very curious to see Flores come in now, because that was virtually side by side that McBeth exited the pits, or Perez exited the pits with McBeth there.
Perez does have a chance to try to take this one back. He's on the back of Sean McBeth and doing what he can to try and see if he could squeeze by. Will Flores come in this lap? Does he have enough fuel to go another? We're already down to 12 minutes to go. This is awful late.
Modoff has to come in too, remember.
It's a good point. In fact, Modoff's coming up to the pit entry right now. Let's see if the 48 gives us a clue as to whether or not this is it. He is going to come in.
Yep. Flores as well coming in behind him. Christian Eisler's in third. He's going to come in as well.
And we haven't put the cameras on Eisler much at all. The Iceman been running a bit of a quiet race. Federico Montini and Tremblay.
It's been a good race for Christian Eisler, though, despite it being quiet. Started 7th, and he's up to 3rd for now with pit cycles.
Modoff is out of his stall and done. Flores as well. Where's McBeth? McBeth coming through. Oh, this is awful tight, but I don't think he's got it. Jorge Flores is going to move up into 2nd with that pit stop. Sean McBeth slots into 3rd. Ben Perez, though, 2 positions lost in the pit cycle.
Oh, and McBeth's got a big run right now on Flores, too. He's going to look to the outside now, going into the inner loop, side by side down the backstretch. Let's see if he can make it work.
No one's willing to give way. Finally, McBeth slots in behind. There were no team orders there. This is good news for Ben Perez, because as we ride on board, he's got a front row seat to the action. He knows that if they start to battle once again, that could open the door for a pass attempt.
Yeah, absolutely. He did mention it, though. They are a team. They are sister teammates with Speedworks Racing Team. I'm curious to see if there's any working together just so that that doesn't happen, just so that they can pull away from Perez. However, time is running out for that strategy to happen, down to 10 minutes.
But here's the other fascinating thing. This is two makes in this battle. The Speedworks cars are both Porsches, and then you've got Perez in a Ferrari. Now, traditionally, we've seen in the past, Nick, that the Ferrari is pretty good in high-speed corners, very well balanced, and the Porsche is good in low-speed corners, just powering off of it. But we should see the Ferrari ahead by that theory, according to how this track is.
We should. We did see earlier, before those pit stops, we did see Perez in his Ferrari struggle a little bit down in the boot. When he was battling with Jorge Flores, though, Flores was able to get a bit of a run on him, but then Perez was able to gap quite a bit, already back on the front stretch, and then up through the S's as they are now. So by that theory, you're right. Perez should be in decent shape, but they do have the car of Sean Macbeth in between them.
Ooh, is he going to be in between there? Nope, he backs out of it. He lifts before they get to the inner loop. So not going to challenge his teammate this time. Or is he? He gets a nose-in. A mistake coming out of the inner loop means that Jorge Flores, unfortunately, is going to have to swap positions. Macbeth now up to P2, having qualified in 6th today.
Definitely did not expect the pass to come there, but that's just where the mistake from Flores happened, and that almost allowed Perez to slip through as well, but it only gets him back up to the bumper of Flores. It doesn't quite get him all around him.
One thing we haven't mentioned is they've actually closed the gap to Modoff slightly, 3.8 seconds from Macbeth to the number 48 car. So
I noticed it looked like when Modoff was coming out of the pits that they were a little bit closer than I expected behind him, so I'm wondering if Modoff had a little bit of a slow stop.
Well, he was probably using a little bit more fuel. He was in there, he was stationary for 10 seconds versus Macbeth, who was stationary for 9. So that explains it somewhat. But Flores and Perez, actually all of them, sub 10 seconds. With Perez, naturally, as you'd expect, taking about half a second longer than Macbeth and Flores to fill up his fuel. So that could explain it.
Oh, we have quite the traffic jam back for 13th. It's currently being led by Hugo Galaz. Tyler DeZube is behind him, and then the teammates of Takeshi Kita, and then Valenzuela behind him, causing a little bit of a 4-car train.
Galaz dealing with it well from now in that number 18. With the orange Ferrari of Tyler DeZube, I'm not sure how long he's going to want to sit back there. Remember, he lost a lot of positions. He was fighting for much higher spots earlier, and a horrible run off the final corner for Hugo is going to offer an opportunity for DeZube. He gets covered off by the inside on Galaz. Looks to go the long way around of the 90, but that's going to backfire because here comes Takeshi Kita.
We've seen Takeshi Kita make some amazing moves tonight. Down in the carousel, he had one. Coming up on the outside, uphill in the boot, he had one as well. And now he's got a big run and coming onto the backstretch as well. With DeZube in front of him, he's looking.
He might get boxed in. Did not want to try and make it 3 wide. DeZube, though! Oh, the second time he's going to mess up the corner, and Hugo Galaz runs into the back of him trying to get out of the way. Kita, 2 positions in 1 corner potentially, as we watch DeZube try to get back onto the track. And indeed, Kita finally seals the deal around Galaz. Let's go back to the replay of this incident.
Tyler DeZube on the outside, turning right into the inner loop and just outbraked himself. It looked a bit, just the car got unsettled, maybe even a little bit of net code there. He came back on track in the worst of spots, right on the hood of Hugo Galaz.
Yeah, he was just along for the ride, and Galaz couldn't have known where in the world he was. I think you're right. I think that was netcode that sent DeZube off, unfortunately, which is sad to see because that was very intense and respectful up to that point, unfortunately. Oh, wow. Ben Perez is by Flores. When did we miss this? That just happened just now. Let's take a look at the replay. It was into the inner loop, set up on the backstretch. You can see already using the slipstream, Nick, on his way up the S's.
Got a big run.
Ooh, Flores had a huge bobble there. Did a good job of keeping from losing the car. He would have gotten right into the side of Perez and would have had a very similar incident to what we saw with Zube.
Yeah, and a very similar bobble from Flores there as well, from the little bobble he had for Sean McBeth to be able to get by him down into the carousel just a few laps ago. So something in the setup of that 929 car for Jorge Flores not agreeing with a couple of these turns there in the backstretch section.
Car that is very much in agreement with its setup is Carl Modhoff's. He has extended the gap now to 4.5 seconds over Sean McBeth. McBeth having really no answer to try and run down Carl, but I think that the 252 is still going to be pleased with what he's achieved today. Let's take a look at the mid-pack once more, because Justin Rame, who can't seem to get away from the action, is trying to fend off Cristobal Valenzuela. That was Gary Schilling we saw slow, and I think he was just letting them through due to blue flag, so no problems there for Gary.
Like you said, this is for 15th place here with Justin Rame. 14th, rather.
Valenzuela staying in his tire tracks, plunging down into the braking for the 90. Porsche versus Porsche. Off the 90-degree right-hander and up the hill. Great run, actually, from Justin Rame. Looks like he's got that damage fixed on the nose of the car because that looks spick and span. And Valenzuela just too far back to really make any sort of threat to the inner loop. Flores has closed that gap back in.
He definitely has, just a little bit. But Ben Perez looks so fast, and just a little couple of bobbles from Flores has caused him to not be able to keep the pace and stay in front of Perez. It has hurt him.
Perez looking to get a podium today after having a miserable race last time at Sebring. Guessing he probably doesn't want to fight too hard if it comes down to it, just to try to get himself some solid points in the second race of the season. And the third place will certainly do that. Only 3 minutes left on the clock. They go through the bus stop chicane one more time. Ooh, a little hot into the corner. Oh, Ben Perez with a mistake. Flores knows it. He immediately gets to the inside through the carousel. And that is all he needs, or is it? Ben Perez carrying the momentum on the high side of that banking. That gives him the inside to the chute. They do make contact. Oh, no. Ben Perez collects it, keeps it off the wall, but it's not good enough to keep... Well, no, that was a lapped car. Jerome Bertome sneaks through. Perez stays P4, but loses out to Flores.
Ben Perez's car so unsettled ever since the inner loop. He got it down into the boot on the inside, still trying to get around Jorge Flores, and just a little bit of contact in front of him, enough to send him into the grass. Kept it off the wall, though, like you said.
Watching from on board on this replay, you know, I can't really blame Flores too much because it does look like Perez kind of washed out a little bit. Flores maybe didn't expect that, and it was the lightest of touches. So this will make a 2-3 finish for the Speedworks team between McBeth and Flores if they hold where they are. We've seen some penalties from last round. The stewards said at multiple occasions on those penalties gave points penalties due to positions not being returned if there was contact. And I almost wonder if Flores himself will unfortunately be lacking a few points after this race. This is 20th place, Mike Cray, just behind Stephen Bench.
These are two drivers that also have not seemed to be able to stay out of the spotlight tonight. Stephen Bench has had a great race, coming up from 26th up to 20th. Mike Cray, not so much. He's gone the other way. He started 15th down to 21st.
It's a BMW versus Porsche battle as Cray dipping his wheels into the dirt coming out of turn 9, but holding the car together. Just about 2 car lengths back from the black machine of Stephen Bench. Doesn't get himself nearly a good enough run to attempt to pass into the 90. White flag going to come out this time for this man. Club West's number 48 car, Carl Modoff. Won every single race last season. Won the season opener here for season 2 in 2019. White flag comes out. This streak going to extend to 10 races in a row very soon. Sun even going to come out to shine on him potentially here. Now, Ravito and Tremblay have been relatively close to each other. Is it going to get close enough for any sort of battle? That's David Slee that they're going by. That's a lapped car that they're getting through.
Yeah, Tremblay's been really chasing Ravito hard, and he hasn't been able to make too much headway. I don't think he's going to have enough speed in that 927 Porsche to close in on this lap either.
We don't need to go to it, but poor James LeBlanc had a thwack against the wall in the final corner. He had to take a tow. He's out of this race now. Not going to be able to finish. With 1 to go. Oh. So, as Carl Modoff comes through the toe of the boot, the gap at this point seems to be more managed. As Carl Modoff has about 4.5 seconds to Macbeth. We saw that a little bit earlier. Not extending, I suspect, the number 48 at this point. Just watching and paying attention to how he drives so that he doesn't throw away another potential win. 2 corners to go. Oh, that's a car off. That is Manuel Paredes. Must have had some problems. No problems for Carl Modoff, though. Easily through the final corner, down to the finish line. The number 48 takes his 10th victory in 10 races.
Macbeth comes across the line in second. Great result for him. Flores behind him. He's going to hold off Perez for P4. And Perez actually didn't lose any positions with that incident either. He finishes 4th, it looks like.
Not sure he'll be happy with it, though. 8th place. Going to come down to the line, but Danny Ravito, less than a second between himself and Jean-Marc Tremblay. 9th for Jean-Marc.
How about this battle for 13th behind him with Takeshi Kita? Again, Takeshi Kita front here of another car. That's Justin Rame this time, and 14th behind him in the 88. I don't know if Rame's going to have enough to get around him. He's got 2 turns left.
Oh, he's awful close, though. All it takes is a good run off the corner. Does he have enough space to do that? He's very strong.
Whoa.
Kita going to try to hold him off.
Whoa.
I don't think he's got the momentum. It's down to the line, and Kita takes 13th.
Heck of an effort, though, by Rame.
Never give up, never surrender, that's for sure. Last few cars heading home. Duchesne and Quint close to each other for 21st. We had quite a few cars finish on the lead lap. I think 25 of them, if I'm seeing correctly. Looks like Duchesne going to beat Quint home. And that's going to be the last of our cars battling. So let's take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Round 2, brought to you by Simsa and Fraser and Dieter, is going to be back for the post-race show. We'll have the unofficial results as well as driver interviews, and on screen, you're going to see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. Welcome back to Watkins Glen International. We just watched round 2 in the PRL GTE Sport. Modoff taking yet another victory, his 10th in a row. The big story was Sean Macbeth, who I think impressed both Nick and I, going from 6th on the grid to 2nd, using the pit stops to perfection, jumping his teammate eventually with a well-executed pass through the inner loop. Jorge Flores eventually fell down to 4th, but recovered, managing to get by Perez to take a 3rd. A little bit of controversial circumstances for that, though. Perez, who started on the front row, slipped down to 4th. Looking a little bit rusty in this series, these first 2 races, but I couldn't put the blame on him for that final incident that put him off the podium. Andre Espinoza, anonymous today, really, you have to admit. Started 4th, finished 5th. Just really never saw him in a battle today. Christian Eisler as well, taking P6. Federico Montini with a good finish in 7th, and Dan Revito coming home in 8th. Very close battle between himself and the driver charging forward, Jean-Marc Tremblay, from P14 to 9th. Corey Clark rounds out your top 10.
Behind them, the driver that started 11th is going to finish in 11th. The 913 car of Leif Peterson is going to finish there in front of Brett Thurman. He charged his way forward from 18th to 12th, but if you want to talk about charging forward through the field tonight, I don't think there was a guy that did it better than Takeshi Kita. He had one heck of a race with 2 or 3 humongous spotlight moments and some just incredible moves. Takeshi Kita is going to finish 13th today in front of Justin Rame. Beat him out there at the battle. Even at finish, he was still battling. Cristobal Valenzuela had another great race. He comes home in P15 after starting in 24th. Hugo Glaz and Kenneth Rodriguez will be behind them, followed by Lucio Vargas, Rodrigo Munoz, and Mike Cray rounding out the top 20.
21st goes to Danny Duchesne, who was just in front of Karsten Quint at the line. Josh Daniels, 23rd behind them. Then Tyler Gilmet in 24th. Mike Richter finishes P25, and the last car on the lead lap is Fernando Porta in 26th. Then Stephen Bench, first car lap down in 27th. David Slee with some action today, finishes 28th. Manuel Paredes, 29th. James LeBlanc takes P30 in our very large field today.
Yeah, and that large field continues back into the 30s. The driver out of the Carolinas, Tyler DeZube, had some trouble. He's going to finish 5 laps down in 31st. 7 laps down, it's going to be Jerome Bertum and Gary Schilling in 32nd and 33rd, respectively. JT Costin in the 8 had he's going to finish 14 laps down in 34th. 16 laps down behind him, Joey Trungale rounds out the top 35. A couple of drivers further back, Pablo Uribe, Pete Mobroten also with DNFs tonight. Maxi Sorella, he was an early one out. And Horatio Brown and David Haber, they are going to round out the top 40 tonight.
Well, we've got our winner ready to talk to us. Carl Modoff gets this one a little bit more of a gap than he had last round, 4.5 seconds. Carl, they gained a little bit on you on the pit stops. I take it that maybe you probably weren't fuel saving this race from what we saw.
No, definitely no fuel saving. Just kind of flat out the whole time. Every time I try and slow down and take it easy, I usually make a mistake. So decided that is a bad idea.
All right. Well, it worked well for you today. This race certainly seems to be, this track, I should say, seems to be a strong one for you because if I recall, it was a relatively calm one for you last time where you just kind of managed the gap and ran to the finish. Do you consider Watkins Glen a favorite of yours?
Yeah, it's a really great track to drive. It has a lot of good flow to it, and the elevation change really allows you to kind of take unique lines that aren't just as straightforward as it normally would be without the kind of different pavement surfaces. So it's a lot of fun to drive and have a lot of laps here because it's so fun to drive. So I definitely would consider it a pretty strong track.
So here's an interesting question for you then. How do you feel about Rovals?
I think it's interesting to watch the NASCAR race at the Roval. I ran my first couple laps yesterday morning at Homestead, and that track's, I don't know how it's going to play out. It's very interesting. It seems like it has very tight corners with long straightaways, so I don't think there's going to be any breaking away with the amount of draft around the oval section. But I think it will make for some really interesting racing, so I'm looking forward.
Oh, we are too, because it's been a while since I've been able to call a race there. Congratulations on your 10th victory in a row.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks for announcing, and thanks to Corey Clark. He sent me the setup that I ran this weekend, so big thanks.
That was our winner, Carl Modoff, that we just heard from. Up next, Nick's going to talk to Sean Macbeth, who gets the second place.
Yeah, Sean Macbeth coming home in P2 tonight after starting sixth. And Sean, I'm curious, with Carl Modoff dominating the way he is, does the rest of the field just consider second place winning?
Pretty much. I mean, Carl's off in his own world up there. He's quick, man. For a second there, I thought, oh, maybe I might have a chance, but he just kept taking off laps at 10th, quicker 10th, quicker 10th.
Yeah, we saw that the purple laps, the graphic for the fastest lap keep flashing up for Modoff. I'm curious, you are sister teammates with Jorge Flores, being him in the west, you in the north. Do all the SRT guys work together, or were you able to get past Perez with a little bit of teamwork, or how does that all work out, or do you just race for it?
We all work together. We help each other with setups and driving tips and all that stuff, and then even in the race we'll work together. But I just took a gamble and pitted early on my own, thinking, well, I was kind of stuck behind Jorge and Benjamin there, and so I thought I'd dip into the pits, get my fuel out of the way, and ended up coming out in front of him, at least Benjamin, and then had to battle with Jorge. But that was a good inter-team rival. He and I run a lot of the endurance races together, and it's a lot of fun racing with him. So that was pretty fun.
Yeah, absolutely. The pit strategy absolutely worked out for you, and that answers my next question about how the fuel strategy played out. I am curious as to know your opinion. You do have until week 3 to change cars. I expect you will be sticking with the Porsche. We saw Ben Perez kind of struggle with the Ferrari. Did you think that was all the BOP working in your favor, or were you guys just purely faster than him tonight?
Well, the first round I actually ran the BMW, and I changed to the Porsche this week. I feel the Porsche just fits my driving style better. I think the BOP is really good across all 4 cars right now. The Ford may be hurting the most, obviously by the attendance. But I just prefer driving the Porsche over all the other 3. It fits my style best, and that's what I want to go.
All right, so the Porsche fits your driving style. We just asked Carl Modoff, do you think the Roval next week at Homestead's going to fit your driving style? Because that's a unique one for sure.
Oh, that one's going to hurt. That's going to be a tire killer for the mid-engine cars. I think the BMW is going to be the strongest there, especially with that bank turn. But we'll see what happens. There's probably going to be some pretty interesting setups thrown on cars. I'm interested to see how it goes. I've been on iRacing since 2012, and I've only done 1 race in a GT car at Homestead B. So I'm interested. Yeah, it should be fun.
I definitely think there's a lot of uncertainty with a lot of drivers like you going into that. So we'll let you go for the night. Congratulations on your second place finish tonight, and hopefully we get to talk to you in the booth, at least if not at Homestead, in the near future.
Yeah, hopefully. Just want to thank the team, all the guys getting together, all working together. It's a lot of fun, huge help. I want to thank you guys for broadcasting this. I think it's huge right now with esports going the way they're going, so I really appreciate it, and it's a lot of fun knowing that people are watching you besides those who are in the sim. So yeah, thanks guys.
That was second place finisher Sean Macbeth. Double toil and trouble on the podium with Speedworks, getting a 2-3 today for them. Let's close up before we go, and of course give a big thank you to our sponsors. Simulation Motorsports Association can be found at simsa.net. If you would like their help or just getting involved in the sim racing world online, they can help point you where to go. And also to Fraser and Dieter. Again, if you need their services, you can find them at FraserDieter.com for anybody who would like a CPA advisor. Thanks to iRacing for bringing us back on the iRacing Esports Network. Again, try and click that subscribe button on their YouTube page when you get the opportunity. They've got so much awesome stuff, not just from us here at the GSRC, but many different broadcasters. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcasts. You can see them listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Nick, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on social media. We're on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. As we mentioned, going over to Florida for Homestead on the Roval. I'm really fascinated to see how that all plays out. It'll be Tuesday, April 2nd at 9 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.